we go again. Happy 2023. How amazing is it that we're in 2023? So many good, amazing, big things to come this year. I know for me, Jennifer, I hope for you, and I hope for everybody else out there. I think that this is going to be, it could be a little bit of a struggle of a year for a lot of other reasons that I don't want to think about or talk about right now. But I think in other ways, it could be magical. And my hope is that even in the struggle, there is some magic. And so that's my goal for this year, is to bring a little magic in. My word of the year this year is impact. And so that's what I'm super excited about that. I'm stoked for this year. So, who we are? We are Taste Life Nutrition Radio, of course, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. Today, we have the amazing Jennifer Bloome. We've had her on before with such amazing conversation. Today is going to be, I don't know if I can say even more amazing, but it's going to be just as amazing anyway. It's going to be such a good show. What are we about? We are about bringing truth to health and wellness the best that we can. And of course, health and wellness is physical, mental, emotional, but it's also spiritual, financial, relational. It's all of those things. And it's important in my mind to do all that we can to bring all of that together and to create the best health we can. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's expected to be perfect. And we're always growing, and that's what life is about. And so my hope is that this show helps to bring the amazing people who I am blessed to have on the show to you, so you have the ability to learn more and to grow. Because every time I talk to them, I learn more and I grow, and that's what life is all about. And that's what I love about doing the show and doing the work that I do. So thank you all for joining us. And Jennifer, thanks for joining us again. Super grateful to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So we always start the show with gratitude, of course. So, Jennifer, what are you grateful for?
How long do we have?
As long as you want.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday. We were talking about how, when you're getting into the space of spirituality and wellness and health and all of that, you sort of get this picture that, everything's supposed to be fantastic all the time.
Yeah.
And, I had one of those days a couple days ago where I was the bug on the windscreen, right? It was just one of those days. And, I was grateful to be reminded, it's okay to have that. It's okay to be in that space. There's a difference between hitting a bump in the road and then becoming the bump in the road.
Oh,
that was
my
college phrase. I have to, that's Jennifer Izio. I have to give her credit. But my gratitude is just really having this deepening understanding of who I am at that soul level and the people I get to play with. The more and more I step up into who I am, it's just really phenomenal, whether it's a client or a colleague or my family. Things are expanding, and I just have so much gratitude. And like you, there are things that we could focus on, right? That could be challenges, but at the same time, whether we're looking at a challenge that we feel like is outside of us or inside of us, it becomes that opportunity to reshape and regrow and learn. And, the whole process is just fantastic. So that's where my gratitude is today.
Yeah, it really is fantastic. And I think it's the hard stuff. It's the hard stuff that builds us up. And then the people who we surround ourselves by who build us up. And something that I like to say a lot, because it's a reminder for myself, but I'm hoping, somebody new maybe will hear it, but it really is, if there are people who are around you who don't build you up, then maybe it's time to look for those who do build you up. Because it's one of the most important things that we can do is surround ourselves with people who are there to help to lift, because then we can also help to lift. And I see in practice a lot, unfortunately, I see a lot of disempowerment. And, it comes from whether it's a breakdown in health or a breakdown in relationships or a breakdown in finances, all the things that come into health and wellness. it ends up creating a sense of disempowerment, I believe. And this really actually kind of goes into what our conversation is going to be today. But what we it's I think it's having the ability to turn it around and say, okay, I do have the power to change this. Whether it's my own research or digging and finding somebody to help, asking the questions, learning and looking and building your team around you. I say that a lot as well. I think it's really important to build your team around you for whatever it is that you're trying to do or build or grow or fix or whatever. Build your team who can help you and who is there to support you, and not for their own good, but for the good of them. I think it's always the good of them too, but the good of you. And anyway, I'm on a tangent a little bit, but I think it's just really important and does go into, I'm sorry, I know you're about to say something, when we're talking about trying to get pregnant, right? Yeah. Were you going to say something? Yeah.
Well, it goes, because yes, and it dovetails really well into that, because I think that, I don't know if only, I was going to say, especially when something is in your body, right, there's that sense, and I'm going to stick with that. When there's a challenge in your body, it can really feel, there's that disempowerment is so, the possibility of it is so big. Because there's something wrong. It feels like it's wrong. If I want to get pregnant, I can't get pregnant. That's wrong. It's bad. And that takes us down that spiraling path where we feel like we have no control. And that, of course, then creates, well, we can get into it later a little more, but right, those myriad of changes in your body. And if we can start with the premise that, okay, yes, there's something happening here. It's not what I want. Now what? How is my body speaking to me? Why is it speaking to me this way? And start asking those kinds of questions. And again, it's particularly in the area of fertility, which is so personal. It's something that is not only a biological drive, right? I mean, that we have all sorts of things firing within our system for those of us who want to have children, right? That's really firing. And then psychologically and culturally, right? We have all these messages. So it can be something that can feel truly out of our control if the body isn't responding the way we want it to. Right.
Fully agree. And I'm going to hit on that, but I need to remember to say my own gratitude because I'll forget. I always do. And so I think I'm grateful for the start of a new year. I think for a lot of people, 2022 was tough for a lot of reasons. And for me, it was very intentionally a year of growth. That was my word of the year last year, and it's so fun looking back and knowing that that's what I did. And will continue to do, of course, but was very intentional about it. And so grateful to now be moving forward. I will continue to grow, but moving forward into what hit me like a ton of bricks was impact and what what I want to put out in the world and what I'm trying to put out in the world and who I want to team up with and partner with and grow and create with. And I'm super grateful for the people who are around me, the people who do just that. I've been surrounded by people who are not the builder uppers, and it's a downer for sure. So I'm fully surrounded by people who that's all they want to do, and it makes me a better person, makes me a bigger person, and makes me feel like I am unstoppable, which is kind of a little bit how I'm feeling, and I'm excited about that. So that's
I can feel it.
Good. I'm glad. So I wanted to talk, just hit on what you said a minute ago as we start to dive into this conversation. I do also want to make sure that you talk about, who you are and what you do and, how you got here and that kind of thing. But there's something that I'm discovering more and more in practice as I learn. I'm the science nerd when it comes to, I like to run labs and I like to look at data and I like to try to fix it with this and that and this and that. And there's so much beyond the physical, because that's what I know. I don't know well enough the mental and emotional, which is why I have people who I know and love and can refer to and so forth. But when there is trauma, or when there is whatever it might be that is affecting someone mentally and emotionally, it's affecting them physically. And there are times when I might be able to do a lot of things with somebody physically, but if we're not addressing whatever it is that they're sitting here, that's that mental and emotional, that trauma, that negative self-talk, that whatever it is that's back here in the back, that's constantly stirring up that stress and constantly stirring up that cortisol and constantly creating these physical changes that I can't do anything about. We need to make sure that as practitioners, and then those who are the clients and the patients, make sure that we're working toward addressing both. And if there's something in your history that's not been addressed, find somebody to help you address it. Because it will affect everything, including what we're talking today, which is fertility.
Yes, that is such, there's so much richness in what you just said. I'm trying to figure out what part I want to dive in with. You talked about team. Mm-hmm. And I think in particularly, fertility is one of those places, one of those health spaces where a team is so important. Because you can look at labs, you can look at cortisol levels, you can look at what the adrenals are doing, you can do all the measurements of all of the hormones impacting ovulation. But if you've got some sort of either an internal stressor or an external stressor that continues to pump in the background, it's a little bit like, you're pouring everything in, but then it's sort of like a sieve, right? It just is coming out the other side. And so, and what I think is really fascinating is, again, due to the, I don't want to call it delicacy, I guess, of fertility, I think there's a lot of times people hear, oh, you think I should look at my mental issues? You think I should look at my, psychosocial issues? Well, that sounds an awful lot like blame, right? It's not my fault that I can't get pregnant, right? It's very easy to slip towards that direction, but the thing I want to say is that, right, all of, 60 to 90% of any illness has some sort of stress component, right? Some sort of that mental component. And it's not just fertility. And it's just that we haven't been taught. Nobody told us this stuff. At least in my growing up, right? And very much, my growing up was very much the time of, it was the genes. It's all in your genes. It's all in your genes. And now, right? Yeah. Now, we know that genes turn on and off based on environmental conditions, not the other way around.
Right.
So,
right. Exactly.
Right?
That's where my heart lies. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So being able to have a multi-angled approach, so important.
Yeah. It really is, and I think it feels so supportive too. And I say this too because I am building my own team and building my business, and so when you have multiple people who are there for the support and that building up, it just helps you. It helps bring calm. And going back to seeking help for whatever mental and emotional disorders there might be, not that it's a disorder, it could just be that constant negative self-talk. I did that. I've always done that. My mom has always done that, and so it's been something that I have had to work on. Is let's not do that. Let's turn that around. And so those things, though, they impact us. They impact us, and they impact the energy around us. And I totally went off on something that I was going to say something else, and it doesn't really matter, but it's true. So the first time that you came on the show, we were not talking about pregnancy and fertility. I want to know a little bit about your world now and how you came into this world, because this is mostly what you do, right? Is fertility, correct?
Well, it really actually is a blend.
Okay.
So this is where I started, though. I started into this world because of my own fertility and really birthing issues. It took us a while to get pregnant the first time. I was young, 24. It shouldn't take you more than a year, but it did for us. I was also in an office full of women. I can't remember how many. There were. I'm an occupational therapist. That's my initial trade. And out of an office of 15, I think there were 8 women going through either IUI, IVF. I mean, it was just crazy. So it was all around me. And then I had a couple of cesareans and just didn't want to do it. And when I got pregnant the 3rd time, I didn't want to do that again. And what I realized, this was really my foray into, it's not just body. Right. It's mind, body, right? And so I did a lot of work on myself and understanding what had happened through those first 2 birth processes and looking at some fears that I had. And as I was going through all of this, I was also in a health and wellness counseling program. And so I started creating meditations for people who were going through pregnancy, going through birth. And what was fascinating was those went out, but then I started to get messages from people that said, hey, it's really great that you have all these tools for somebody who's pregnant. There's lots of them. If those of us who are having difficulty conceiving, we need tools too. And once I started with that community, I just fell in love with that community. I fell in love with working with these women, and it's primarily women. I do some work with men. I tend to have women who are attracted to the services I offer. Right. And so as I was going through all of that and really focusing on fertility, I had my own journey in my own business. My husband ended up unemployed. I had business costs. We went through a bankruptcy, and I started applying all of the things that I knew from how to create internally to how to create externally. And so that brought me into the world more of abundance and creation, and added the component of soul as I came into this area. And so what I say that I do now is I help people create more. I help people create more of what they want, whether that is more health, where we are on the spectrum of abundance, whether it's health or wealth or relationships, love. So that's the world that I play in right now. So sometimes it's specifically fertility, and sometimes it's specifically money. It just really depends.
Okay. That's very cool. So I was looking at your, I don't think I wrote it down. I was looking at your website. I didn't, but I talked about it on my little promo video, and you're going to know it. But it's not about doing pregnancy. It's about receiving pregnancy. Is that what it says?
Yes. So, especially when you're somebody who is having trouble getting pregnant, there are how many million things, right? You Google fertility, infertility, and you can come up with 1,000 different things that you can do. You can do yoga, you can do acupuncture, you can write blah, 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 blah.
So much.
And it really becomes this, okay, so what do I have to do? How do I do this? How do I get this done? It's very action oriented. And I mean, you don't get pregnant by sitting on the couch. I understand that. At the same time, it's not our job to make a baby.
Right.
Our job is to receive a pregnancy. Right? The woman's body receives the sperm, it receives an egg, it receives the embryo into the uterus. Right? So really what our job is to figure out how can I be open and receive. And when we take that viewpoint, when it's more about opening up and being fertile, how do I add the physical doings that are going to help me be fertile, but how can I stay in that mental space of being fertile and allow my body to do what it is supposed to do, but then it's about receiving as opposed to having to crank through and do, because at some point that starts to work against you. Right?
Yeah, it feels like a job, and a job can be stressful. And then if it's not working as you think it's supposed to work, then it becomes more stressful. And again, there goes that downward spiral. When what I love what you're saying, because I didn't realize until undergrad how much I view and believe and know that having babies, the creation of babies is this amazing, miraculous, can't use my words, miraculous thing that really, in my mind, it's not unexplained. I mean, as a Christian, it is what it is, how we're created. But the two, and I think I read this on your website, and I went, those are my words, and I love that. Like, that's so cool. But the fact that two cells can come together and create a little being is mind-blowing to me. It's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, egg, sperm, baby? Question mark?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. It just there's the mechanics of it,
Uh-huh.
and then there's the miracle part of it.
Yeah.
And even looking at the biology of it, it's a miracle any of us are here. I
Yes.
just don't really quite understand all of that. It takes millions of processes happening in just the right order, in just the right way, in order for a body to sustain a pregnancy. But again, and we forget, right? When you're getting into that mindset of, okay, ovulation is here, sex happens here, right? Or this or that, the supplements happen here, the exercise happens here, the blood work happens here, the procedure happens here. We forget that there's that whole soul side of things. And when we take that out of the equation, yes, I mean, we keep saying the word stress, which we can talk about here too in a second, but the stress comes up, we don't leave room for the miracle. And if you're somebody who, and I can raise my hand, likes to control how things unfold, the idea of waiting for a miracle doesn't sound all that great, right? And that's not really what I'm suggesting here. It's not like, again, you just wait around and hope and pray. And when you're in that space of hope and prayer, when you're in that space of understanding who you are and being in alignment with who you are at a soul level, your body relaxes in ways that then bring extra energy, vital energy, to the reproductive area. It's not something that's easily measurable, but the impact is incredible.
Yeah, I think I use the term a lot of times for a lot of different reasons, but it's aligned action. Yes, we need to and want to, be present, right? Be present to what we're trying to do. Get healthy. If there's, in my own experience, I know a lot of women who are having, fertility struggles, and a lot of it can be due to autoimmune conditions, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed. And so, it is, I think it's a little bit of both, but also being open to knowing that your body your body knows when it's supposed to do its job, and if you're stressed or doing, which creates the stress, it takes away from allowing the body to do its job. So moving into that aligned action, yes, let's get healthy. Yes, let's eat well and eat the foods that we know we're supposed to eat that are going to support the body, and do the movement that we know that we're supposed to do to support the body, and knowing that the body is working in favor of you. And so is God. That's, it sometimes it doesn't work out the way that we hope it works out, but a lot of times I think it does. I was talking with a friend of mine earlier, and her mother told her that, or her mother was told that she would never have children, ever. So they were going to go in and do a hysterectomy. The day before she was to go in to do a hysterectomy, and I think it was 10 years that they tried. The day before, her mother was feeling odd, and a nurse told her, you need to go have a pregnancy test. She's like, no, I don't, and the doctor wasn't going to do a pregnancy test. And so she did a pregnancy test the day before her hysterectomy, and she was pregnant, and then had 2 more kids after that.
Oh my gosh.
And you're just like, oh, holy smokes.
I know. My daughter actually has a friend whose middle name is Coyote, because her mother has a similar story, and Coyote is the trickster, right? So it's just that same story of, right? Could you have kids? Can't have kids. Oh, well, here last month. Here's the baby, right? It's amazing. It's amazing how things happen.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk a little bit? I guess I need to face you. Do you want to talk a little bit about, how it is that you work with people? What is it that you do to help them with this process and to bring the calm that they need and the soul into the process that they need.
Sure. So there's a couple of different levels that we work on. So the first level is really talking about what's present day stress look like for you, or what does present day life look for you? You know, are you working? Are you juggling different types of career and other kinds of things? So let's talk about kind of present day stressors. And then there's a variety of tools that I use. I ask people to start to induce what's called a relaxation response, right, which is simply the opposite of what happens in your body when you're under stress. So we start with some guided meditation, visualization, breathing exercises, just some really basic kinds of tools that can help you feel better in the moment. And so then the next level we take a look at is what does your family history look like in terms of fertility and pregnancy? Did you have a parent who had a really difficult delivery, or depression or anxiety? What kind of medical history might be going on in the tree in your family that might show what some underlying emotional history is happening, right? Has there been any sort of sexual trauma? So we really start digging into some of those patterns specifically related to fertility, but also then looking at what kinds of other patterns might be going on that are causing you regular stress. Perfectionism.
I'm sorry. Do you mind stopping right there, because I want to ask you a question, but don't lose your spot.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to. So I think that this is so fascinating, because I believe that when you're talking about history, you're not only talking about parental history, but it can be history that's passed down, right, from generations.
Yes. Yeah. Whether initial parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, we're always we get things through our DNA, right? Yeah. We carry beliefs, right? Had a client who had a fear of hospitals, and it wasn't her fear. It was fear that came down through the generations of things that had happened in hospitals. And so she just sort of carried this innate fear of hospitals. Well, she needed, for a variety of reasons, IVF to be able to get pregnant. Well, you got to go to a hospital for that. Her anxiety was through the roof. So yes, absolutely. It isn't just your own lived experience or parental lived experience. It can be coming from a variety, multi-generational, cultural, any of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to expand on it just a little bit, because this is the most fascinating thing to me. This is, if you watch the show, you hear me talk about epigenetics. This is epigenetics. And in my world, when I look at epigenetics, I'm looking at it looking forward. It's what you do today can affect your health tomorrow. It can affect your child's health. It can affect 7 generations down, which is, my motivation behind Soulful Conception, my program that I'm so excited. That's what I'm going to talk to you about after the show. But it's not just that it affects 7 generations ahead. We have been affected by 7 generations behind. And it's the most fascinating, and to me, I'm like this, it's funny because in my mind, up until fairly recently, it's just been, okay, yeah, it's all about what's ahead. And it's now really, I'm talking to more people who have the experience with the understanding that the epigenome affects ahead from behind. Whatever that means. But that we do have, and they have been found, trauma genes have been found, and trauma genes do move ahead. And so much of who we are is because of our epigenome from behind, from our past. And I think that it's so fascinating when people have the ability, people meaning I think practitioners, or even maybe not, but have the ability to help people dig into that history to learn where that comes from and then how to address it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have a client that springs to mind as you say that. she was somebody who, and I'd say all of this without any judgment. We all have our stuff,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So
of course.
she was somebody who expected suffering. That was a pattern, a theme. As we started talking, it became very clear that her first thought about anything was about suffering. Well, as we started looking at that, it is a theme through her family and through her religious history. So when we started talking about letting it go, it took some in-depth work to be willing to let it go. Because on the surface, you're like, oh, well, why would I want to suffer?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you're separating yourself from your culture, if you're separating yourself from your family story, it gets a little bit tricky. So I love working with some of the tools because you can't do it consciously. You can think about it. You can work on it. You can remember to use your tools, use your consciousness that way. But you have to use tools that work at the level of the subconscious to start to really erase it from your biology.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating what comes up when we start looking at these kinds of things.
It is fascinating. And what I think, to take it just a step further, imagine if this experience or experience like it was yours, you expect the struggle always, and imagine one or two things, either passing that down to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, or stopping it in its tracks and allowing that struggle to be in the past, literally.
Yeah, goosebumps when you say that, because people will say to me in sort of introductory conversations about mind, body, and soul and fertility. It's like, well, why am I experiencing infertility? Why? I never thought I would have problems getting pregnant. So how is that mind-body connection? How is that true? And my response is always, look, our souls understand how to get our attention. It's not that we have to do something. It's not that there's a lesson that has to be learned. But there are ways that we can expand in ways with joy. And so this is the way that your soul happened to get your attention. And as you do that, the ripple effect is unreal. It's a little bit like looking at the night sky for me and thinking about all of the stars and the planets and the universes and galaxies, and I have to stop because my head explodes.
It's too much. Yeah.
These kinds of ripples make my head explode. In a really good way, right?
Yes, for sure. What was my second time I've done this? What was I going to say? I was going to say, shoot, doesn't matter.
It'll come back.
Yeah,
it'll come back.
It'll come back. Oh, it's so frustrating. I've said for it's been about a year now. I'm working on my brain health because I do that. I probably do that more than I should. And I'm like, I need to continue working on the brain health when that happens. I just keep it going. Anyway, so I had interrupted you. Do you remember where I interrupted you?
Oh, yeah, so we were talking about the different ways that I work with people. So talking about present day stressors, talking about family history, right? That's how we got on our tangent. But then really, and we got there, taking a look at other kinds of patterns of thought that create stressors within the body. And I wish I could find a different word than stress, because it's one of those red flag words for people, like, oh, stress, I don't want to hear about it. But the reason why stress, again, it's for all illnesses, not just fertility, but really what's happening is your cells are always listening, right, to their environment. And as we feel emotion, our cells feel emotion.
Yeah.
Our cells can be in growth mode, or they can be in protection mode. This is simplification, obviously.
Yeah.
In order to conceive, we have to be in growth mode. We can't be in protection mode. And so, for example, let's say you're somebody who is, I'll use control because that's one of my things that I'm working on letting go. So if you're somebody who wants to be in control, and then when things, if that becomes a rule within your body, I can only feel good when things are in control. When something's out of control, like you can't control getting pregnant, your body sees that as danger, right? So everything within your body is responding as if you were under mortal danger.
Yeah.
And long term, that creates, you know, a number of things, but lots of things that happen that are going to impact your fertility. You're going to have less blood flow. You've got all the sugar and the cortisol, which is going to interrupt ovulation. You get issues with your hypothalamus, right? So even though stress is sort of this garbage term that people throw around, it really is so important. So looking at these patterns, again, like the suffering I was speaking of before, or perfectionism or control, or even something like, I don't ever want to parent like my mother parented me.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be like my dad.
Yeah.
Right? Those kinds of things, even if those aren't things that you're thinking about on a consistent basis, or, you know, in a conscious way, again, that's getting pumped through your system. Your brain is listening for it, right? And so those kinds of things are danger signals. So we look at patterns. That's really what I'm looking for. Patterns of thought, patterns in history. And then I use a tool called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, as a way to begin to heal and shift those patterns. We work in present moment. We can go, what I love most about the technique is going back in time. You know, we have things that happen to us as kids that set us up for a certain way of thinking and making decisions. We can go back to those particular incidents and tap with those younger versions of ourselves, heal it out here in the matrix, and it comes back and impacts our physical body, and 7 generations back, 7 generations forward, right? All of that.
Amazing.
So, so that's really the work that I do, and ultimately the way that I look at this is I talk about it as being fertile. What is it that we can do? What are the steps that we can take to allow your body to be in that fertile state of being?
So I guess that's what you do, is you help to walk people through those steps. And I'm assuming they're sort of individualized, or do you think they're kind of generalized?
No, well, so yes is the answer to that question. Right? So I've got a being fertile system where it takes people through 7 different pillars that are going to help you bring your body into this being fertile state. So that's something that you can, you know, those pillars are the same regardless from person to person. However, right, if it becomes individualized when you start adding your own history to it. Right. So if you're somebody that wants to do something on your own and you're working yourself through that system, right, that's great. Other people get stuck in certain places, right? So because one of the steps is opening to receive. Well, you know, if you think about receiving, like if you think about, okay, I think about a receiving posture. So if your body was really open to receive, right? Hands out, you know, hands open, chest back. This has become, your heart center becomes really wide open. Well, if you're somebody who's had a lot of hurts, if you've been hurt, if you've had relationship hurt, if you had hurt anywhere in your life, opening up your heart, opening up your body to receive, that in itself can feel dangerous. So then it becomes individualized. Well, why? And then we work on that.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. So I think it still fits. I remembered what I wanted to say, and I think it still fits because it's so. I find it to be. It's something that I talk about a lot, and it fits in multiple areas. But what I'm quite sure of is we as a global, you know, race. So much of us, and that's not entirely true. Anyway, generalizing that we have lost the ability to listen to ourselves, listen to our bodies. And our bodies are always talking to us. And, you know, a symptom is our body talking to us. The inability to get pregnant is our body talking to us. A, you know, brain fog or a headache or whatever the case may be, we want the quick fix very often. It's like, I have a headache, I'm going to go take Advil. I have gut pain or a heartburn, I'm going to go take an antacid. Please don't do that. That's another show, but don't do it. But same with, you know, all of the complications that can come with the struggles of getting pregnant. That is your body saying, well, a couple of things. One, I'm not ready. and so why? You know, that's what I try to teach people as well, is always ask why, no matter what. Always ask why. You can always, I think you can almost always dig deeper. There's something more. And even me, when I think I'm digging as deep as I can, I'm like, oh no, there's another layer. And I think it can be there with the mental and emotional. It can be there with the physical, with the labs. But ask why, you know, and try to dig. And it's not always easy to sort of, as you know, everybody says, you know, unpeel all of the layers of the onion. But just keep digging, because and stop covering up. You know, if it's covered, I think totally off what I was gonna say, but you know, we can cover up with alcohol. You know, we can cover up with anger. You know, these things can, and all of that's going to do is create more symptoms, more issues, and you know, again, the downward spiral. So listening to your body, taking that step back, sorry, and knowing that your body is a miracle in and of itself and is amazingly smart, and listen to what it's trying to tell you, or find somebody who can help you listen to what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah, and you're so right. It's like, okay, something, I have an upset stomach, so I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
and wanting it like that.
Yeah.
And you know, really, infertility, it's, your body's out of balance, and you're absolutely, when we start to ask why, it's something that is going to, that gift will keep on giving, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just looking at my notes here. When you are working with, well, I know what I wanted to ask you. We are on the same page when you said you do work with some men, but you mostly work with women. I say that a lot. You know, I know that when I'm speaking, I'm mostly speaking to women. That's what they hear. It's the woman who's the one who gets pregnant. She's the one who's always doing the trying. And I say that not excluding men at all. It's just that's how a lot of it goes. But I think we want to make sure that the men are not excluded, because they are just as important. And I know as part of my program, men will be a part of that, and you know, education on men's fertility will be a part of that. But I think it always ends up going back to the women, and I know that I speak to women, but I want men to be involved. I want men to know that they are as important in the process. Their genes are just important. The healthy sperm is just important. Their activity, their you know, physical health, all of those things are just as important as the woman's in creating this healthy child and a healthy pregnancy and a healthy future.
Exactly, and men have the same range of past issues, right?
Yes.
They have a family with history. They have their own history with their own parents. Being the dad they want to be, will I be able to provide for my child? Can we really do this? Is right? And it's similar and yet different.
Yes.
The patterns of thought that might be present, that could absolutely be impacting being able to create this child.
Yeah, so true. I think what I hear more often than not, both in personal and professional life, when it comes, you know, from a man's mouth, it's my job is to provide. And it's so ingrained, so deep set in them, and I think it brings up a lot of fear and frustration, and you know, I think that's certainly something to work on. But it's also, that's how they're built. You know, I mean, we are built differently.
That's right. Biologically speaking, right? The male provides and the female receives and nurtures. Yeah. Right? I mean, and that goes back, right? I mean, you talk about epigenetics. You know, we're here. We each individual person are here because we came from a line where the male provided and the female nurtured. Yeah. We would be here otherwise, right? We're here because people, we're descended from people who had good fight or flight. They were able to get away from the dangers in the world, the physical dangers that used to be present that aren't present now. And so we're biologically wired in ways that we don't want to, we're past a lot of it at this point,
Mm-hmm.
consciously, but wiring-wise, our
Right.
biology hasn't caught up yet, right?
Yeah. What you say is interesting too, though, and this is going back to the biology of stress. And, you know, when we're talking about back in that time, I think very often it was the normal stress response, right, where you have the rush of cortisol, you got to go do the thing, you got to do it really fast, whether it's providing or nurturing or fixing or whatever the case may be, and then it goes down normally, right? Whereas where we are today with technology and life and just the way things are and everything's so fast is we stay in fight or flight instead of coming down to and allowing that parasympathetic nervous system to calm us and to rest and digest and do the things that it's supposed to do and bring blood to the core, right, which is going to be bringing blood to the reproductive organs to allow all of those things to happen. If we are constantly in fight or flight, our blood sort of constantly sits in our extremities because we got to go instead of that calm, rest, digest. You can throw reproduce in there. You know?
That's so true. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is so ingrained that when we do allow ourselves to relax, like, oh, I'll take a vacation, right? So you get out on vacation, you get out, you relax. But if you bring that relaxedness back into your day-to-day life, it feels like a stressor because you're not doing enough. You're not being enough.
Yes.
You're not getting enough done, right?
Yeah.
And so it's we've become almost immune to how much stress we're actually under.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, we hear it all the time, and I know I'm not the best at it. I'm a lot better than I used to be. But really finding the time in your day-to-day life to sit and be calm. And even if it's just through a guided meditation, if you can do it on your own, that's great. But knowing that has to be part of your daily life in order to allow your body to come to a calm. It needs to be like food, you know. And I say that, and some people just don't eat. And you know, like, I gotta work, I'm not gonna eat. So let's you know, let that go. We must eat. We must be still. But bringing the body and being it's having the awareness around what your body needs and knowing that you have to have that calm. Because what's going to happen is if you don't have it, it's going to be a lot worse than not being able to get pregnant. You know.
That's right.
Yeah. Your brain's going to shrink. Your blood sugar is going to spike. You know, life will not be fun and probably will end earlier than you want it to.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I experienced. I was on a period of extreme stress back in 2009, going through bankruptcy. My adrenals shut down.
Oh,
you know, that was a year plus. I mean, I'm still recovering in some ways, but that was a year of it being in bed. You know, and I would wish that on nobody.
Yeah.
And so, there's one other piece I wanted to say about that. What did I want to say?
Brain health.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So actually, this is really an important. I remember this is a really important topic for me because I have consistently said to clients, what went on the calendar first is your time of relaxation, and it doesn't have to be an hour meditation 3 times a day, right? So I looked at myself at the end of the year last year and said, that's advice you're giving. You need to take it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing this year. I've shifted my schedule around. I've done some different things so that I can put some mini relaxation, just quiet, whatever it is that I'm going to do in those sessions, and whether it's adding in an herb, adding a tea, something, right, that's going to be advantageous. That goes on the calendar first.
Good for you.
You know, now I'm still experimenting with it's January 5th.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, but I am experimenting, and it's hard, right? When that client wants a different time, and that's my rest and digest time, I'm like, no, I have to, right? And I will admit there's some privilege in that, right? I do have the ability to create my calendar, and a lot of people don't. However, what if our culture could finally turn around and say, this is what we need to be happy, healthy people? And when we're happy, healthy people, we respond in community a lot different than when we're stressed and wired and angry and can't figure out how to have a conversation to save our lives that doesn't involve screaming at each other.
Right.
So we're digressing a little bit here, but that's really a topic that's near and dear to me personally, and I figure it's easier to share it when I'm actually doing it myself. So.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. I was the same way. I've been working on a lot of these things for years, and it was only just 3 months ago, give or take, I don't know, that I just went, something clicked. Sometimes something just has to click, and I don't know what it is, and it was because of my team, but it was, a lot of it was just, okay, I'm giving up and giving it to God. Because, give it up, give it to God. It's just, that was kind of what it was. But in order to do that, you also have to spend time with Him. And so,
what do you think about that?
Yeah. So it was okay. This has to be a priority, and I also know that if I am not healthy, if I am not doing the things that I need to do, because there are things that I want to do, right? Impact is my word this year. If I want to have an impact, I have to be healthy here and here and here, and part of that is going to be taking that time, being still. I do both the guided meditation as well as some of my own, just being still. And I say this a lot, but for anybody who hasn't heard this, I don't know if you've heard this, I love this so much. I had a friend of mine on the show a couple of years ago, and what he told me was, prayer is talking to God, and meditation is allowing God to talk to you. And I take that and I keep it in my heart, because it is, now, I'll talk to God, and I'll, throughout the day, and, I'll say my prayers at night and in the morning, the whole thing. But then I finish my meditation, which is a guided meditation on, might be abundance, or it might be, the job, or, the work that I'm doing, that kind of thing. But then I'm just still. And it really is that time that I'm just still, and I ask Him, like, what do I need to know? Or if it's something specific. And it is that stillness of allowing Him to talk to me. And sometimes He does, and sometimes He doesn't, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, and sometimes it comes in other ways,
yes.
Right? Like the question comes, and then it's another couple of days. The book falls off the shelf. You hear something on the radio, right? And it's like, right? It's being resourced through somebody else so that you can actually hear it. And I feel that same way. We can talk to so many different levels about God, universe, nature, and our individual soul, and being able to have tools that allow us to check in with who we are at that deepest level, because we forget that we aren't just this human being running around on the planet. We are a spiritual being, and to have those kinds of tools to get yourself in alignment with who you are at the deepest level, it just so much changes, and then there's inspiration. Then there's when you're making a choice, you're making a choice that's going to be one that you feel like you can live with for whatever amount of time, because it's something that's come out of inspiration, rather than I'm going to make this happen right now. Let's go.
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally agree. I love that. And just to bounce off of that a little bit, with being, spiritual beings, I think that we have been created to do such amazing things in this life. That's why each of us are here, and each of us does have a role, and each of us has an impact on whether it's other people or whether it's on the family. I think, going back to early on when we were talking about the disempowerment, we think that we don't have, a lot of us believe that we don't make a difference. And everything that we do here on this earth makes a difference in some way. And sometimes we're never going to know what that is. But I believe that we're here to do a job. I believe that we're here to grow and to build and to serve and to love and to give and to do all of these things. And again, nobody is perfect, and shit happens. But it's, my role, what I am coming to learn about me and my role in my life is I want to do these big things, but I want these big things to help others do these big things, right? So my nutrition work, let me help you feel amazing so you can go do the big ass things that you're out here and put here to do, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, that's, yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes when I'm giving my message of, you know, I help people create more. It's like, oh, that sounds really selfish. Like, no. No, because all what you're doing is you're creating yourself and yourself within your environment in alignment with soul. I mean, we're not talking about just wanting things because well, that's a whole other conversation. Because just because it's a soul desire doesn't mean it can't be fun. But so as we fill ourselves up, we are in a much better place to then put out into the world. Yes. We've got to start here, and there's a balance of giving and receiving and all of that. But we've got to let go of this idea that it's all about sacrifice and suffering, and that's the only way that I'm going to make any sort of difference here on the planet.
Totally agree. The more I have, the more I can give. Yes. And I think it's important because it's not about all having. It's about giving as well. You know, that's one of the things that I am looking forward to is the more that I have, the more that I can tithe. You know, I'm like, I can give more to the church. Cool, you know. So, you know, because I trust the church to do what should be done with it, right? And I don't always do the right thing with money, but anyway, that is a little off topic. But I think it's important. I think it's important for all of us, whether we're in a place of thinking about having babies to you know, in the moment, to struggling, to going through IVF. You know, there's a wide range of people who are out there who, you know, this conversation can speak to, who your programs can speak to. And of course, you know, my Soulful Conception program is for all of those as well. And my program is really about preconception care and planning ahead. And let's get healthy. So before I talk too much about that, I want you to talk about anything else that maybe we didn't cover, anything that you do, where you can be found, how people can reach you, all of the things.
We have covered so much; it's hard to know what we haven't covered here. You know, but I do want to say, the mind, body, soul work is for anywhere along the spectrum. I think that is an important point. And whether you're going through your third IVF or whether you're just thinking about having a baby in the next couple of years, same amount of impact can happen. And I can be found at my website, which is anjionline.com. I know you have all the links. Drop me an email. You can find me on Instagram, DM me over there. For any kind of questions, more than happy to sort through this, because again, this is intimate work, and you need to have somebody that you trust, and we have to be a fit. So more than happy to chat with people. And again, just that reminder that this is work that is about expanding yourself. It impacts fertility and everything else in your life. It's going to impact who you are as a parent. It's going to give you tools to work with all of the stressors that come up once that baby is here. This is work that will keep on giving, and it's that investment in yourself, in your health, in your mental well-being is just priceless. Agreed.
Thank you for that. So of course you can find me at tastelifenutrition.com. We are here every Thursday, streaming live on kuhsdenver.com. So the radio show, the website, tastelifenutrition.com, and then of course all of the social media is tastelifenutrition.com. You can always find my guests through any of the social media. You can find them there. And then of course Soulful Conception. And you know, we're a little bit short on time, but we're launching mid-February. And so what I want to get out there, the biggest thing that I want to get out there is this is not about me creating a program. This is about helping people create their healthy families. And it's about inviting people into this program who are the Jennifer Bloomes, who have this amazing love and this amazing resource and all these things that they want to give. These people who I think are amazing at what they do and have amazing information to give are a part of this program. And so I don't even have the words. It's coming, and I'm excited about it. So if you have questions, of course, reach out. You can, message me. You can, find me on the website. That's super easy, tastelifenutrition.com. Look up Jennifer. She's amazing. She's amazing at what she does. And appreciate you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.